Time for sound design. In today's video, I'm going to explore another new feature of Ableton Live 12, Granulator 3, which is a Max for Live device that now comes standard in Ableton. And it's a granular synthesizer developed by Robert Henken, one of the co-founders of Ableton. And basically what this is, it's a synthesizer that uses, instead of an oscillator, a sample. And you can basically use any sample that you have, drop it in there, and then start creating your own sounds. This is version 3 of Granulator. I haven't played around, I think with version 1, I never played around with version 2 very little. So this device is kind of new to me, but I've seen and heard interesting textures coming out of this. So let's just explore some different sounds, create some textures and see where it brings us. Here in Ableton under Max for Live, there's Granulator 3. When you install Ableton, you actually have to install this separately. So here on the MIDI track, I have loaded up Granulator, as you can see, and it says drop sample here. So under drums, percussion, my idea is that some kind of melodic percussion sample could be interesting. So some kind of bell or maybe this kind of bell tin. Let's drop it here. And now when I play on the keyboard, you can hear something. So the position is at 50. You can see this thing moving around. I'm gonna put it on cloud mode, so there are multiple grains. And then if we move the scan function here, we can kind of scan through the sample, and then we have grain size here. Put it very low. Let's play in a different octave. All right, so interesting. Then there's variation. Let's play around with a different sample, because this one is a little bit too grainy, or a cowbell, yeah, an 808 cowbell. Let's put some notes into the MIDI clip so I don't have to hold down some keys on the keyboard all the time. Let's put a chord down, D major to this. So especially if you play with the variation, you can create basically variation in the texture. Let's explore that. So without the variation, so at variation at 0%. Already this is quite a nice texture, considering it started with a 808 cowbell sound, and now we have this. So it doesn't sound like a cowbell, it's a continuous or a more continuous sound. And typically, if I wouldn't use the granulator, I would have to chop this sample up and maybe create multiple tracks with some overlap. It would be a lot of manual work to get to this point, and now it's just basically, I only messed with the position, the grain size, and the variation. So only 3 parameters of the granulator, and I already have this result. Let's see, I'm in octave 2, put this 1 octave higher. Yeah, pitched up never sounds that good as pitched down, so let's change the grain size again, or maybe the position, or both. Basically, with the position, you can make the sound fade in and out, because if you're later on in the sample, it's more quiet than in the beginning. Let's see if I can automate the position on the timeline like this. As you can see, I automated the position on the timeline, and now what happens is that it starts at the back of the sample where it's most quiet, and then it goes up to the front. So you basically create a fade in. And I'm just curious how it looks like as a waveform. So I'm gonna copy this track and then right mouse click, freeze and flatten. So now in Ableton 12, you don't have to first freeze it and then flatten it. Now it's one command here. And now we have an audio loop, and you can see the fade in here in the waveform. And this is exactly how I would use it. So I would flatten it to an audio loop and then save that audio loop to my library of sounds. And these kind of textures with this kind of reversey effect and sort of not really melodic, but there is some kind of, rhythmic element to it. These are great starting points when you want to build a track, or if you already have a skeleton of a track and you want to add something to create variation, like in the intro or in the bridge or in the break of the song. Often these kind of textural loops are starting points to have sort of a bed where you then play kind of melodies over or do something with a sample. Let me continue and create another texture from another sample. I have another instance here of Granulator, so let's find another kind of sample. I'm seeing here triangle, so I'm still staying in melodic percussion or percussion. This is a very high note, so that could be interesting. Let's drop it in. And why I say that's interesting is because I want to pitch stuff down. So I want to play it lower than the original pitch. And since this is so high, there's a lot of room to do that. I'm going to put this on mono for now. I leave it on classic mode. So if you make the grain size so small, then you basically get a continuous tone, almost like an oscillator in itself. Doesn't sound particularly good, I think, but... Now that we're in classic mode, we have the shape parameter, which you don't have in the cloud mode. And this is basically an envelope, so you can create this really short, attacky, kind of clicky percussive sound. So that's something cool to explore. Let's get another LFO and modulate the position just a little bit, maybe 10% or 20%. I'll go with 12. Let's put in a C1 note. There's one continuous note. And I'm gonna put in another LFO to modulate the grain size. And I want to modulate it from here, which is maybe 40%, to this. So you get almost this kind of rolling, like kind of repetitive sound, which I think is a very nice textural element. Let's change the rate of the... So the first LFO I put at 1.5 bar and the second one at 2 bars to create a bit of a variation. had the sound on mono with this utility, and so now it's stereo again. Yeah, this is already a super cool texture. Basically, you don't need any effects. You don't need any kind of delay or reverb or kind of filtering. This is just one small sample of melodic percussion, some modulation, either in automation, lanes, or now I did with 2 LFOs. And you already have so much variation, so much going on with this textural loop. Let me just copy this and flatten this to audio to see how it looks like. So right mouse click, freeze and flatten track. So now you can see also in the waveform the kind of stuttering effect that increases. And for instance, if we pitch this down an octave, two octaves, so yeah, as you can hear, the textures you can create with Granulator are fantastic, and the great thing is that it's actually very easy to get to these textures. So just with a sample without any effects, because now I can still think about, okay, do I want a filter, some reverb, some delay on this, or do I want to chop these up, pitch them again, repitch them? But this is just with only the Granulator, and there's much more features and functionality in the Granulator, but that takes much more time to explain and also explore. If you're also into textures and textured instruments, I have 2 sample libraries over on Gumroad linked in the description. They're free to download and they're sampled instruments that are very textural, so go check that out. Let me know what kind of sounds you used Granulator for, or another granular synthesizer if you use another model and make. As always, keep making music. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.